Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Copy Corner with your two favorite writers in writing podcast. It's Terry Schilling
and Dan Marzullo.
Dan Marzullo, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good, Terry. How are you doing on this Monday?
On this Monday, man, doing good. Recording this on Monday. You guys are going to be listening to it. We dropped the video kind of everywhere on Tuesdays. And again, thank you everybody who's watching these and listening to our podcast. Our listeners are going up. The downloads are going up, which is exciting. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, download them and rate and review us too. Because again, we'll give some shout outs to people who are reviewing the podcast here. But Dan, what are we going to be talking about today on the Copy Corner?
Yeah, so today we're talking about how to start an effective content strategy. So this came from a mutual friend of us, right up top.
Yeah.
Terry and I have a fellow copywriter friend named Christopher, and he reached out and asked us, to kind of do something on this topic. So we thought that you guys would get some value out of this. He asked, he said he wants to dive more into content strategy and start building those for clients, and just kind of wanted some tips on how we approach it. So that's what we're here to do today.
Yeah, man. Dan, and you are a little bit more the master of us too, of content strategy, because this is something that you deal with on a regular basis with your clients. So I know you have a lot of great advice for people kind of getting into the early stages of their strategy. So go ahead and I'll try to chime in where I can.
Yeah, sounds good, Terry. I don't know about master, but I appreciate it, man.
Let's stop with these. You're the killer rock star. You're the guru. You're the wizard. You're more of an SEO content professional, I guess.
No, I like it. Yeah. So to kick it off, I would say, and Christopher and everybody else who's watching, my first advice would be go check out HubSpot's inbound marketing certification. It's a free course. I've taken it and it is killer. It literally dives in super detailed to all of these steps. And you're going to come out as a pro on crafting content strategies after. So check that out. But essentially, my advice is really, it comes down to, your content needs to follow the buyer's journey, right? So when I think of that, I think of kind of your classic little funnel, right? Diagram of awareness, consideration, and decision. And at the end of the day, you're creating content for all of those stages. And then the strategy is, how you're going to map all of that together based on how your individual customers or clients respond to content. So what I would say, right, is awareness phase is usually your stuff like you're educating, right? So your blog posts, your webinars, your, all of those kind of top level, low commitment things right there. And then you kind of jump into your consideration phase, which is where maybe you're doing a case study and people are kind of comparing and contrasting. Maybe it's a product comparison blog, right? It's a little bit more detailed. That's how you're kind of moving down that funnel, right? Until you get to that decision phase, which is going to be either your demo, your free trial, or even that offer. So that's kind of how I associate, what types of content to create for each stage of that journey. So keep that in mind. And again, that course is going to go into this stuff super detailed, but that's kind of what we start thinking about when we're crafting that strategy.
Yeah, Dan, that's super solid advice. And it is interesting because a lot of times people aren't going to be aware of who you are. So that awareness stage is more or less getting people to, get to know you, like you, and then trust you. So like you mentioned, that content, like how-to articles, maybe creating a webinar, doing some videos, maybe a podcast, some other content that gets people to understand that this is like, I'm aware of your problem and here's how I'm helping solving it. And then we're going down those stages of the funnel. So I really like that.
Yeah, exactly, Terry. But what about you? What are your advice for approaching this?
Yeah, to go along with that, as you follow that beautiful structure that Dan just laid out there, to help you come up with some ideas, you have, all right, I need to write some content articles. What you can do, and I'm going to take some advice from Brendan Hufford, who does SEO for the rest of us. I talked with him a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned something quick and simple that you can get started and inexpensive is go to answerthepublic.com and you can type in your core idea. Like you can even type in like content marketing or, CBD e-commerce products, whatever that core thing is that you're trying to rank for, what your product or service is. Then look at that list on Answer the Public because they'll give you all these different scenarios of what people are searching for. And then you can use a tool like Keywords Everywhere start going into Google and start searching these things and seeing what the search volume is like. And then you can get an idea of some ideas for the articles. There's probably some phrases that are really going to be competitive for you, but there's some that maybe have a better chance of ranking for it. So that's a good way to come up with some content ideas. And then even from the title standpoint of it, look at places like BuzzFeed and these clickbait articles, because you can come up with some really creative titles for people to click on your article. We want to get their attention that way. And those clickbait articles, I mean, it's a reason why you click on them, even though sometimes they don't fulfill the promise of the headline. Happens all the time, but it still got you to click on it. I think that's a great, idea to get some structure and like how to come up with a really, attention grabbing headline. But then lastly, and what Brendan told me, which I really liked, was the best way to get traffic and to gain, customers and a following is to have a take on your content. Don't do all this copycat stuff. Have an original take on it that's going to separate yourself. Once you get their attention, keep their attention and keep them reading with, something kind of unexpected and original.
Yeah, that's awesome, Terry. Well, I think that's important to remember too, because you've got all these stages and types of content, but the content still has to be effective. So taking that kind of data-driven approach is huge. Yeah,
there's so many times where you may click on an article because it seems like you're going to get some good answers, and it just seems stuffed with keywords and some stats you feel like you hear all the time, and they're directing you to other pages that, like, why don't I just go to this site and figure it out? So it's pretty interesting. Something that even I learned the hard way, kind of writing content articles early in my freelance writing career. So I think with this kind of structure that we laid out there, I think it's a really good foundation, again, to start that effective content strategy for you.
Yeah, exactly. Keep these tips in mind, and then definitely recommend kind of diving in further with some of those courses to really, be able to build a solid approach for your clients.
Yeah. And that HubSpot course is free, you referenced, right?
Yeah. And it's awesome too. When you're on there, they've got that HubSpot Academy page. They have tons of courses, but that one, kind of covers the entire cycle. So check that one out, and then dive deeper into their other ones too, if you're feeling ambitious.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much, man. That was some good advice here on this episode of the Copy Corner on how to start an effective content strategy. We hope that you guys find these tips helpful and actionable. Of course, we didn't want to spend too much time, just break down some simple things, a simple structure for you guys to get started on your own. Any other questions, let Dan or I know. Please, again, rate and review the podcast. You guys can follow us and watch us live on YouTube too on Monday mornings when we do these live. But again, we're kind of all over the internet, Dan and I. So pretty easy to find us.
Yeah. No, it's great to be seeing some topics come in from you guys too. So keep reaching out on things that you'll find helpful that we can cover. Yeah, absolutely. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Dan, anything else? That's it for me, man. All right. I missed this last time. I didn't do our original send-off. It felt weird. It didn't feel natural last time. So to everybody listening and watching, love what you do. Proceed with passion. We'll see you on the next episode of the Copy Corner.